Ready, 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 ready?
Say what she got. Me. What? Where? Why? How? No. Right. Sorry.
Number. Again. Hello.
Bye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's go to.
Cross that one out. I forgot to cross that one out. I forgot to cross off go to, so you guys can cross that off when you get your list. You're signing this time. You sign. You sign. Back row sign. Lake Fenton. Back row sign. The Pelicans! There, thank you. But sign. Everybody has to sign. Uh-huh. Tanner, come on. You too. All right, I'll unzoom, but you guys have to sign. I will zoom back in if you're not signing. I can still see you sitting all the way back there in the corner. The more you sign, the better you're going to retain it. Hey. Tanner. Sign, please. The faster you sign, the faster we get through this. Thank you. Thank you, Michaela.
sorry.
Oh.
Oh, that's. No, it was.
Okay. Ready?
Ouch.
Yeah, right? And I was.
I don't know what you're ready for.
So.
Emma? Emma? Oh, somebody could run down to the office and make copies. Oh, but it didn't it didn't send anything to you? Okay, I'll send it down to the office towards the end of class. All right. Here we go. Oh. Okay. Everybody needs to pay attention because the activity we're going to do after will come off of this. So, shush. You shush. Shush. Oh, okay. Can't do everybody. That would take years. Well, okay.
my name, is that what she said?
Yep. Um, what's going on down here? Don't be. That tree is disgusting. No, not that tree. My tree. My tree. Don't be jealous that I have a tree. All right, Sydney.
Like, how am I supposed to? I don't care.
Oh. What's that noise? Mm. Oh. Ooh, yours moves so fast. Davidson's always really slow. Ooh. All right, now 4, 5 minutes, which I'm going to put on the clock. We might not last 5 minutes. This 5 minutes should be completely silent because you do not need your voice to sign. I'm not going to put a dialogue up. I just want you to have a conversation, as much of a conversation with somebody as you can. I will tell you to switch partners throughout the 5 minutes. Okay, so wherever you're at in your conversation with that person, finish it. Okay? So your dialogue might be something like, hi, your name what? My name, blah, blah, blah. Finger spell again, please. Your name, I forgot. Whatever. Use the vocab that you have. Okay? And when I say switch, doesn't matter where you're at in your conversation, switch partners. You guys ready? If I don't see signing, then we're going to have a problem. Set. Go. Switch partners. Oh. Switch! I see most people signing in Lake Fenton. I do not see Maya anywhere in the camera even. Where's Maya? Maya, come over so I can see you. I have to be able to see that you're signing, please. Thank you. Switch! All right, we are going to talk about your culture quiz. Was everybody able to log into Schoology and take it at home? I know you emailed me. Raise your hand if you were unable to log in. You tried and you were unable to. Okay, that is an issue. If you tried to log in and you were unable to, please shoot me an email tonight. I'll respond to you. So you're good. Otherwise, let's go through this. Open discussion, you guys. I want you to chime in. So everybody should be off their phones. Sam. And other homework should be away. All right, here we go. What is American Sign Language? 2 answers. A code similar to Braille, a shortened form of English, a language incorporating a lot of mime, a language capable of expressing any abstract idea, a language using picture-like images to express ideas and concepts, a language utilizing space and movement to convey meaning. What do we think? Is it A, a code similar to Braille? No, it's definitely not similar to Braille. Shortened form of English? Incorporating a lot of mime?
I didn't even have that down.
Ah, sorry guys. All right, so it's a language, you guys, it's a language capable of expressing any abstract idea. It's also a language utilizing space and movement to convey meaning. You'll find sometimes in American Sign Language there are signs that look like the actual thing, like tree. Kind of looks like a tree, right? Flag, yep, kind of looks like a flag. One of the So there are some signs that are very picture-like, but for the most part, it's not. All right, historically, American Sign Language is related to
French.
French. If you said French, you were correct. Because here's my 30-second history lesson. Are you ready for this? This man named Thomas Gallaudet. Have you guys heard of Gallaudet University? It's in Washington, D.C. Anyways, so this man named Thomas Gallaudet was like, he lived down the street from a little deaf girl, and he thought, this girl is not dumb. Charlie, get off your phone. She just doesn't know how to learn because nobody's teaching her in her first language. So he's like, I'm going to learn how to teach this girl. So he went over to Britain because he knew there was a guy over there teaching people in sign language. And he went up to this British guy and he was like, teach me your ways. And the guy was like, no, I shan't. And so then he went over to France because he heard of Lauren Clark, who was also teaching deaf children. And he was like, will you teach me your ways? And Lauren Clark was like, oui, I will. And then, so he taught him all he knew. And then they came back over to America and set up a school for the deaf. So we are closely related to French Sign Language. Okay. American Sign Language is used by most deaf people in which of the following countries? United States and Canada. So, it is not universal, you guys. There is Mexican Sign Language, Chinese Sign Language, Japanese Sign Language. British Sign Language is completely different than American Sign Language, even though they speak English. Crazy. I mean, just why do we speak different languages? Same concept. Okay. What % of deaf people have deaf parents?
10%.
C.
10%. 10%. All right. American Sign Language and deaf culture are transmitted to deaf people from generation to generation, primarily through. Well, if it's family, if only 10% are born to deaf parents, can't be family. Residential schools for the deaf. So we're going to start talking about that a little bit. A lot of residential schools for the deaf are closing down. There's Michigan School for the Deaf, but
Yeah, it's my power.
closing or just not as popular. More and more deaf people are going to normal public schools. So then that culture and that language isn't going to maybe pass down through the residential schools. Charlie.
That would be a field trip.
What? Yes, I'm going to try this year. For sure. Making Michigan School for the Deaf a field trip. Michigan School for the Deaf is in Flint, right next to Powers. We'll probably do a field trip. All right, the role of facial expressions, head movements, and eye gaze in American Sign Language is primarily, what do you think? Emotive. It definitely does show emotive. What else? Grammatical. Yep. Grammatical. All right. While watching another person sign, it is appropriate to focus on the signer's.
Hand.
What do you focus on when people are talking to you? When people are talking to you. Their face. Same. Yep. Same thing. Their face. Because you have peripheral vision, you get a lot of it. All right. Among ASL signers, finger spelling "oo" is mainly used in what ways? Brand names and people and places. Good, Tyler. We talked about that yesterday, correct? Right, Caitlin? Yeah. ASL makes use of the space in front of the signer's body to indicate sentence types, convey distance, contrast two people, place things, or ideas, or express time concepts. All of it. Okay. to get the attention of a deaf person who is looking the other way, you should yell as loud as you can, right?
Yeah. That'll work.
Did that work? Tap him or her on the shoulder, wave in his or her face, or go around and stand in front of the person.
Stand in their face. Tap.
B and C are perfectly fine. And when it says wave in front of their face,
Yes.
it's literally like Olivia's looking down, so if I want her attention, like this. Totally fine.
So we can't go like.
No.
Dang it.
Unless they prefer if someone just walked into my field of vision.
Yeah, so waving, like, if they're not paying attention, waving or tapping. If you go to Michigan School for the Deaf, you're going to get poked a lot. Deaf kids have no spatial boundaries. I see you. Okay. If your path is blocked by two signers conversing with each other, you should wait until they stop talking before you pass through. Bend down very low in order to avoid passing through their signing space. Go ahead and walk through or find another path. Go ahead and walk through.
Seems rude though.
Nope. It seems rude to you guys, but deaf people can sign for hours on end. When deaf people meet each other, especially if they just happen to run into each other and they haven't seen each other for a while, they can stand there and sign with each other for hours. Because finally, yay, they get to communicate with somebody in their own language. So sitting there waiting is going to take forever. Finding another path, you might end up walking a mile around to get somewhere. That's ridiculous. Bending down, are you kidding me? Like, playing limbo?
Play limbo.
Okay? Literally just walk through. You're fine. For you, if you guys miss a sign or two, you get really confused because that's not your first language. But if I'm talking and I leave out a couple words, English is your first language, you can probably figure out what I said. So same concept with deaf people. If somebody walks through and they miss a sign or two, the conversation isn't lost. Okay. All right. We should not be on our phones right now. I know that I'm speaking, so you don't technically have to look at me, but you should still be paying attention. Okay. Which of the following are considered rude by deaf people? Touching a person to get attention. Well, we know that's not it. Looking at a signed conversation without indicating you know sign language. Describing a distinctive feature of a person to identify him or her. Or talking without signing in the presence of deaf people. B and D.
Yeah.
Okay. Looking at a signed conversation without indicating you know sign language. So this is a really good example. If I'm at the grocery store and I see two deaf people signing, I'm not going to go up and be like, hey, sign language, I know too. No, I'm not going to. So one of my girlfriends, we went to the 80s Fest, hence all my 80s gear, in Frankenmuth recently, and there was a table of deaf people, and they were signing, and my girlfriend and I graduated from Central together, and we took sign language. So she doesn't know as much sign language, but she knows a little bit. So I just signed a couple things to her. And even if she didn't know sign language, I still probably would have signed a couple things to her just to indicate to this table, oh, this girl knows sign language. Now they know that I know what they're saying. So they're not going to talk trash about me because they know that I know what they're talking about. Okay? So in some way, you just throw a couple signs out, even if the person you're with doesn't know sign language. You don't have to go up to the person and introduce yourself. You can. A lot of deaf people are more than willing to sit there and sign with you because they're excited that you're learning about their language and their culture. You don't have to. Okay, this one, let's see. Talking without signing in the presence of deaf people, clearly you can't always do that. You guys don't know, but if I had a deaf person in my classroom who walked in, one of my deaf professors walked in, I would be trying to sign as much as I can while I talk. I know you are, but you're learning sign language. So there's a difference. Okay, describing a distinctive feature of a person to identify him or her. All right, Charlie, I'm going to use you as an example.
Oh, okay.
What is one distinctive feature about you? What's one special feature about you?
I can ignore people.
You can ignore people. Why can you ignore people?
Oh, right, just take it off.
Yeah, you can straight up take your cochlear implant off. Okay, so if a deaf person meets Charlie and they notice that you have a cochlear implant, they might even just give you that name sign. So deaf people are very, very upfront about your appearance. Let's say I meet a deaf person today and I look like this, and then 20 years from now, I meet the same deaf person and I gained 300 pounds, they're going to be like, whoa, you got that. Like, deaf people are super visual, so that's what they notice first. It's not offensive, they're just brutally honest about what they see. Okay?
My kind of people.
Okay. So no. Describing a distinctive feature is definitely not offensive. Yeah, to them. Or like freckles, like, oh, that girl over there with freckles. Or we're going to talk about this when we get to Unit 8 and we start describing people in depth. Let's say I'm in a room full of white people and there's one girl who's of Asian descent. Am I going to describe all of her clothing and all her hair and stuff? No, I'm going to say, oh, that Asian girl over there. That's just what it is. Okay? So we'll talk about that more in Unit 8 though. In general, the least effective communication strategy between deaf and hearing people is speech and lip reading, using sign language, writing back and forth, and using interpreters. Lip reading. Lip reading. Why do you think lip reading is ineffective?
Because I read the wrong thing.
You can lip read the wrong thing.
And because English might not be there.
English is probably not their first language. How many sounds do you make? A lot. You don't just make 26 sounds, right? There's not just 26 sounds of the English language. You make a lot of sounds. And a lot of those sounds look exactly the same. Right? A lot of the sound comes from back here. So lip reading is not very effective. Also, what happens if some guy has a crazy mustache? Now, can you see what I'm saying? Can you see it? Can you see it? No, not at all. Tyler.
I bet lip readers who are deaf hate ventriloquists.
I'm sure they do.
Oh my gosh. Did you see America's Got
Yes, I did. Okay. Oh my goodness gracious. Which of the following are valued in the deaf community? For deaf people to govern their own affairs, being kept informed about the community and its members, restoration of hearing loss, group cohesiveness, or individualism. What do we think?
B.
B, being kept informed about the community and its members? Definitely. Definitely. What about restoration of hearing loss? What do we think? That one's a really touchy subject in the deaf community. Cochlear implants is a very, very controversial issue in the deaf community. And Charlie, when we get there, I'm going to have you give a little speech. Why is it a controversial issue? Because culture and language are related. Without culture, you can't have language. Without language, you can't have culture. So cochlear implants are basically, if you give a child a cochlear implant, they're going to learn how to speak, just because there's no point in getting a cochlear implant if you're not going to go through speech therapy. So learning how to speak and communicate orally is taking away American Sign Language from that child and therefore ripping them out of the culture. So one by one, people are getting plucked from the deaf culture. But then on the other hand, you're giving your child a great opportunity to be able to effectively communicate with everybody. Pause. Pledge.
Why do you always go so fast?
I'm just matching the speech. Okay. Other than the word deaf. Other than the word deaf, Gavin. A culturally appropriate way to identify deaf people would be to say they are deaf and no. Deaf mutes? Hearing impaired? All of the above? None of the above. Correct. None of the above. No. Hearing impaired, and it depends. And it depends. Like that, hearing impaired doesn't offend some people, but most deaf people do not think that being deaf is an impairment.
What part of hearing?
Hard of hearing is fine. Hard of hearing and deaf. So none of these. Hearing impaired, you'll hear it a lot. Most of the deaf community is going to be offended by it. So just hard of hearing and deaf. Historically, deaf people have faced discrimination in which of the following areas? What do you think?
Hiring and promotion.
Job, hiring, and promotion, definitely.
Obtaining
Obtaining a
services,
driver's license.
and obtaining access to public
Yep. Okay, so definitely job, hiring, and promotion. Obtaining access to public service, information, and entertainment. What are you saying, Charlie? What do you say? E. Yep, definitely. B, obtaining a driver's license without restrictions. Can deaf people drive?
Yeah.
Yeah, but do you guys? A lot of times people jam to their music so loud you don't hear the ambulance. Anyways, you see it in the mirror.
That is true.
Yeah. Why would obtaining access to public services, information, and entertainment be an issue?
Because
A lot of it involves talking, not signing.
A lot of it involves talking, not signing. Yeah. So most things have closed caption, right? Yeah. Yeah. So, but what language is closed caption in?
American, well, American English, whatever.
Well, right. Historically, we already did that one. All right, some of the issues the National Association of the Deaf have fought are using sign language in the classroom, maintaining a high proportion of deaf teachers at elementary and secondary levels, the right of deaf people to adopt children, giving double tax exemption to deaf people.
C.
A and B. Okay, primarily A, using sign language in the classroom. You guys are just crazy! Get this! Gavin, get this! Are you ready for this? Do you guys know who Alexander Graham Bell is? You guys know who he is, right? The guy who made up the telephone, yes. He married a deaf woman and had a deaf child and was like, I'm going to teach these people how to speak, okay? So he set up schools for the deaf, but those children came to school and had their hands tied behind their backs and were forced to learn how to speak. He also was a proponent for not letting deaf people marry each other because he thought it was 100% genetic. So Alexander Graham Bell is absolutely hated by the deaf community. Absolutely hated by the deaf community. He was awful. So, but from there, other schools, even deaf schools, for a while, would hit children's hands when they started signing, or would tie their hands behind their backs when they started signing. It was only oral communication. Yeah, and the Conference of Milan, you guys, the Conference of Milan was a conference that determined the way that deaf people were going to be educated. Guess how many deaf people were there?
None. 0.
Yep. Yeah, no. All right. What was the purpose of the protest rally at Gallaudet University? To get a deaf president. So it's called Deaf President now, and we'll read more about that. All right, so tomorrow, you guys, tomorrow is Wednesday work. Make sure you do your Wednesday work because, remember, you don't have that many vocabulary words. I can only make so many sentences, so you're bound to see the same sentences on your test on Friday. Do your Wednesday work. Yeah. I heard my name.
No, it's not.